Bismillah. Welcome to another edition of the Collective Book Club. Thank you so much for joining. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. Greetings
Alaikum
of peace,
assalam.
greetings of peace, mercy, and blessings to all. So today it might just be me and you, Siju, which is fine. Hang on, let me pull my screen because I work with multiple screens. So I wanted to start out with a quick, brief intro of the book itself. And just a reminder, the space, the Collective Book Club, is a space where we gather not just to analyze the stories that we read about, but to sit with them, to let them move through us slowly. And I love that. Like you said, the books we've gone through so far has been quite intriguing, is the word I would use. So, well, today we're discussing Parlour Wife by Foluso Agbaje, which is set in the 1940s colonial Nigeria during the backdrop of World War II. This is a time shaped by imperial rule, the British rule in Nigeria, economic constraints, shifting social hierarchies, and deeply refined expectations of womanhood. But as we begin, I want to gently remind us in the spirit of the space, which is we are not here to judge the protagonist. I know I tend to do that sometimes. We're not here to dissect her choices necessarily. Um, um, to dissect it from a distance, even though I think we probably might start doing that a little bit, just in the spirit of discussion. And we're not here to turn the story into a moral lesson, just something we can learn from. We are here though to notice what survival looks like in a constrained system, to notice how power moves quietly and loudly, to notice emotional cost of secrecy, comfort, and dependency, and also to notice what parts of her story still echoes in our story as well. So this book asks difficult questions. What does choice mean when options are limited? And what is the difference between security and freedom? And also, what does dignity look like when legitimacy is denied? So, as always in this space, we aim to be trauma aware and not necessarily trauma centered. We want to be reflective and not academic. And we want to, undergo a life integrated sort of journey and not just the literary aspect of the book itself. So I invite you to settle in, take a deep breath, and ask yourself what stayed with you after closing this book and why? So, what stayed with
Okay. What stayed with me? First of all, I'm not sure how you guys decided on choosing the Parlor Wife, but there was a recent NPR article about uh, Fumi Kuti, which is Fela's mother,
you?
and how she was in the marketplace and participated in some of these protests. So that's where my mind went immediately, and that was kind of the frame of reference that I was reading the book, and particularly when they started talking about the character of Mama Titi, I said, "Ah, it's Mama Fela. Look at her now." Okay. Um,
I was not aware of
so
the NPR news. I've just not been
yeah,
doing news as such, but that's
it's
interesting.
been like a month ago. A friend of mine actually sent it to me because he was like, they used a word in the NPR story that he was not familiar with, like an alake of Yoruba, which is like a little chief or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. I
And
like it.
yes, exactly. So he was like, he used another word, and I was like, I've never heard of that word before. But then when I went to the original article, they did talk about the alakes, and I was like, that word I do recognize.
Mm.
So in reading the book, I was just, even though there's like a romance story here, and then there's some power struggles between children and parents and, gender roles, I actually thought of it about like women's liberation because I was thinking about Fumikuti and
Mm.
about how she was all about women's rights and how women in our culture have always been outspoken and have always had a level of independence, particularly when it came around um, how they navigated their business in the market. That was kind of their area where the
Mhm.
men didn't bother them. And so now with this book, I was like, oh, how can Baba Tokwe try and get into her business in the market? He needs to, that's none of his business. That's not his area. He's like,
That's what the
in my
line is
mind, I'm like,
on.
in my mind, I'm like, you need to stay in your lane. That's how.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Cool. Thanks for that. For me, what really stood out was the juxtapose of imperial Nigeria with the culture itself. Like they have the culture, like the women having
Mhm.
their rights and being able to run things in the marketplace, but they're
Right.
still being ruled by this colonial power. And
Yeah.
it was
Mhm.
just interesting to me to see how to read about or hear about how that was being kind of going on at the same time. It's hard for me to really see how that would work in today's world, of course, but
Mhm.
some of our parents, your parents and my parents, part of their life, this is the kind of life this is what they grew up in, you know?
Yes, my father was actually born around the time of this
Uh,
that the story was made. So he used to talk about going into the bush to hide from the bombs, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. There was no World War II in Nigeria, and now that I feel bad because I should have just taken him at his word. He was
uh,
right,
yeah,
like because he was a small child during that time, and I think what you mentioned is very interesting because there's like layers of control. There's control with the parents, control with the husband, control like in the family, and then control in the society with the colonial government exerting their control too.
yes. And that part,
Hmm.
I don't know, that part really annoyed me more the most out
The
of the whole.
colonial,
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
colonial
It's
level.
like
Okay,
it was just kind of like, why they're there, you know? Of course,
these
it's
outsiders.
I was like, you know,
Why are you here?
alhamdulillah, we're all woke now, but I was like, how y'all
Yeah,
let this happen to you? You know, but they did what they could do back then.
interesting. You saw it in that frame.
Yeah,
I saw it more as an imposition because when people come in with guns and the divide and conquer strategy is try, tested, and true. And if you give this one guy a bunch of money and give him fake power, and he's going to run with it, and it'll be very easy.
it's that part, the part that
Mhm.
because I'm realizing not to get too
Oh,
much.
you're saying why is it so easy for them to be swayed?
Yes, and
Okay.
I'm realizing, of course, they had to buy out certain Nigerians for them to be able to have a foothold in the country, right?
Yeah.
And now we're
Yeah.
just left with what we're left with. So yes,
Yeah.
people like Baba Tokwe, for
So
example.
you're thinking like, why are you so weak that you
Yeah,
don't? Okay.
can you not
Okay.
see they're taking your power? You're
Yes.
really benefiting, but in the
That's
end,
an
you're at a
interesting.
loss. But you know, people don't think that way.
People are so short-sighted. So
Yeah.
that's actually there was a women's group meeting today
Hmm.
about Salah and Wudu, and she talked a little bit about how Dean and Dunya and that people needed to not be so short-sighted. But that is the human inclination. That's almost like the default way, and you really have to have that internal struggle to not be short-sighted.
Hmm.
So it's easier said than I mean, and I'm
No,
guilty of this too.
or
It's
no.
easier said than done, you know?
All right. So my next question, and this is kind of follows up on the same one, but I like the second piece of it. It says, what emotion stayed with you most after finishing the book, and where did you feel it in your body? And
Mm.
the feeling in your body is more what I'm going after here. I feel like for me, I intellectualized a lot of things that was going on. Kind of looking at it as like I tried a lot to take my emotions out of things. Well, I was emotional a little
Hmm.
bit about Keke's did you listen to the book or you read it?
I listened to it.
I love how the reader, because I'm not always I'm always hard on like um readers of audiobooks when it's like a Nigerian based and Yoruba based type
Oh, the
thing.
narrator. Okay.
I'm very judgmental, which I shouldn't be, but I am. But I
Mhm.
think they hit the nail, like calling her keke. It wasn't Kiki, or it was keke, which really means bicycle in Yoruba,
Mhm.
you know. So I
Mhm.
wonder, and this the author didn't get into it, but in my mind, I'm already making up stories around that. Like maybe, you know, she used to like to ride a bike or something, and then that nickname stuck because it's close to Cane Day, keke, you know. But anyway,
So the
um,
bike analogy is interesting because in one of the earliest scenes, she talked about when she was coming home. This is when her father was still alive, and there was a bicycle leaned up against the fence, and she immediately felt that twinge of um, resentment because her brother had a bike and she didn't.
she did.
So that's interesting.
So
Okay.
it might be, you know, maybe that's where she was going with that. I don't know, but
Okay.
I loved that term of endearment. It felt
Mhm.
so full to me. But anyway, in terms of where I felt it, I feel like I intellectualized a lot of things. Again, this
Mhm.
is probably the woke part of me because the backdrop of imperialism was just it was just grabbing my head like, oh my gosh, how could
Mm,
we? So where did you feel it the most?
gosh, it was hard because there were so many different layers. And at the end, where she finally did achieve her freedom, um, the last part of it stayed with me where they were at the train station and Emeka did not know about the baby. And I was kind of like, why didn't he know about the baby, honey? Why he might have come sooner,
Yeah.
and that's so even at first, the journey for the book to me was about her access to education, her being denied what is her right. And
Hmm.
I almost looked at it with like a Muslim lens because I was like, she has rights, you know. And I kept contrasting her situation with Mama Titi because I was like, you see, because this is what we do in our with our culture and our religion. You see how she was brought to the forefront because that's what Islam teaches us, and that's where my focus was, or where my energy was more
Sorry, wait, you
intellectually.
said Mama Titi. Did you mean Mama Tokwe?
No, Mama Titi, the one in the market, she was Muslim.
Oh, sorry. The okay, the leader of the LAWM.
Women's
Yeah,
collective,
women's group. Yes.
right?
Okay,
So
okay.
that's kind of where my focus was for the majority of the book. But then at the end, it flipped, and then I was left. Um, I guess I felt it kind of deeply in my heart
Mm,
because when she talked about him coming with her for her and not for the baby, that made sense to me.
mm,
But at the end, I think she said she had been there for 3 years. Um, and I said, so in 3 years, you said nothing.
yeah. But
Huh.
so again, remember,
So,
like I intellectualized even that. Like
yes. Okay.
I kind of understood her reasoning. She didn't want to say it because there's always a risk of Baba Tokwe finding out and then thinking this is my child, and then maybe he gets out of prison.
Making it
I felt
worse.
like she
Oh,
really
that's a
thought
good
it
point.
deeply. She thought, she put a lot of thought into this whole thing of how to break the news to the father of the baby and all that stuff. So I
Mhm.
almost excused her. And I'm usually not that way. I was surprised that I didn't feel annoyed by her even more.
Okay.
But I almost excused her. I like maybe I understood why she did that at the
Let's
end.
see.
Interesting.
That that's what I had some difficulty with. So even though most of the book I kind of had every my emotions here about feelings of justice and rights and education and progress and uh, independence. At the end, it just almost threw all of that out of the window, and I just kind of held it here. Maybe because her having a child is such a big part of someone's life,
Hmm.
and it kind of turned the whole like she was in Antibimpe's house with her two kids and her husband. I just it threw me, like genuinely threw me. And now I was like, I don't know what to think. Because when you talked about how it left you wanting more and you were, is there a part two? I was like, yes, absolutely. I'd like to see part two.
Dude, what?
Yeah.
I was like, are you kidding? It's over?
Yeah.
No, we can talk
Hmm.
more about that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was done. I was like, no, this is not the end. Okay.
Right.
So, what did you find yourself judging any character? And at what point did that judgment soften or harden?
Yes, I judged the mother of Ibeji. I was upset with her for treating her children unequally from the jump. And I was upset with her for so initially, when they didn't have enough money to send them both to school, it made sense that she prioritized her son. She's a product of her environment. She's a product of her culture. She's a product of her time. I get that. Don't blame her. After um, after the father died, Baba Beji died, and she continued to press this immediate marriage, then I lost all. No, I was like, you are a horrible mother because
Mm.
this child lost her father, and your solution is to marry her off right now. She lost her father. She has only one father. So, and she was talking about how, oh, and her, I think they did a little flashback to Beji's childhood and how she hadn't grown up with the
Like
opportunities that
it was a love marriage with the father. Is that what you're getting?
um no, like Kenda's grandmother, Kenda's mom's mom, I don't think was terribly involved, and that she didn't have the 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 things or what have you that Kende had. Because when you talk about like Auntie Bimpe and Auntie Laide, and how, because those were the sisters of Beji, correct?
No, I thought there was no, no, no. I
Her
think
dad's sisters.
Auntie Laide's which one is in the UK? Is it Bimpe that was in the UK?
Bimpe's in the UK,
I
but
think
Bimpe and
Auntie
Laide are
Laide's
sisters.
husband is siblings with the Yabeji.
Okay. But that was where my judgment rested, because she did not allow this poor child any time to mourn. It was inconceivable to me, because everyone, it made me feel like she was very selfish, that this was um, like perhaps I just did not understand that. And I don't feel like I forgave her for that, because she stopped going to church. She was able to process her husband's death in the way that she felt was best for her, but she didn't give that same right to her daughter. And so
Mm.
that was my beef with her.
So interestingly, I was forgiven of Yabeji. I honestly chalked
Okay.
it up to she's a product of her environment.
Okay.
And for someone who understood that after the loss of her, I'm not excusing it, but after the loss of her husband, she would have been by herself. No one was, I don't think she was going to remarry, or, it's really not part of our culture necessarily. And she was much older. Her kids are 18 years old. There was no prospect of anything in terms of security for her.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, she was highly dependent on her husband. And the only way for her, well, in her mind, the only way for her to be taken care of is for her to have a son-in-law that will turn around and take care of her. It's very
That's-
unfortunate. For some reason, I excused her because she was in that, oh my gosh, there's a fox walking towards my house. But she's yeah, I know. We see it all the time. Just usually not in the
Okay.
daytime.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. But it was just so I didn't even think much of that. I was just kind of like accepting of it. Okay, I get it. That's how you all are. But that said, there are stories of women I've heard who really do take their children's interest at heart, even in those times where they really do all they're able to do to protect their child. And I believe she dropped the ball on that one. She didn't even complete. And then the fact that she actually had a love marriage, like she
Which
was
is
in love with
interesting.
Papa Beji, and
Which is interesting, particularly in the 1920s, when Tunde and Taiwo would have been born. So that's what I mean. Like, I remember how I said I kept thinking back to Fumi Kuti, which is Fela's mother.
Mhm.
These are her people. These are her age mates.
Right.
So how can this one radical woman be so different? She had a lot of women following her. So even though I excuse like her wanting the daughter to get married, or her letting Tawa get his education and Kane did not, I was like, okay, product of her environment, she's got to prioritize her resources. Once the father died, she didn't have any sympathy for this girl. And that's where I was like, she
Yeah.
had space within the culture. There was room for that. And she made a choice. So I'll put it that way. She made a choice.
She did. She did. The
Mhm,
character that I felt myself judging the most was Keke.
mhm,
I loved this girl. I loved her.
mhm,
She could have been a super brilliant woman and all that stuff.
mhm.
And I know we don't want to turn this into a moral thing. I felt like she could have found another way to leave her husband and gone after the person she loved. But and I think she was more, I mean, which she did eventually. But I felt like one time they discussed possibly going to Enugu, right? I
Yes.
felt like she
Mhm.
could have gone that route much earlier and before things got so bad, but she made her choice. So that's the person I was judging and side-eyeing most of the time, but I was
Because
still
of how
rooting
she
for
left her
her.
husband, you said?
I mean, I'm a stickler for marriage. Like if you're married, even if it's a bad marriage, go through the process of living that person, getting a divorce or whatever. But to proceed, and then she did have a child by another person. That's a lot. That's like
Well, her
that's
husband was impotent.
say
That
it
was
again.
clear to me. Her husband was impotent because if you look at uh, Mama, is it Ayo? I forget her daughter's name.
So
But Ayo had wanted another child. She wanted a boy so bad she just wasn't going to get one. She just wasn't going to get one.
yeah,
She
that's another thing. I actually thought that would come up. Like
impotent.
perhaps
Yeah.
he's
Mhm.
putting, and I thought it was going to be like
Clearly,
Baba Segi's.
clearly he's impotent. Yeah.
I thought it was going to be another
Clearly.
Baba Segi's wife.
Yeah.
I was ready. I was getting ready for that. Like, uh-oh.
Right. Right. Because she couldn't
Right.
have gotten pregnant so easily if Baba Topa had anything going on. So I was like, he's impotent.
And he kept like
So, yeah.
giving more days to Ayo, taking away Keke's days. So I was like, you're
Yeah.
right. I did think about
Yeah.
that too. Like, what's
Hmm.
going on?
That
But
son
yeah,
is never going to come for
you know,
Io.
being
Poor lady.
judgmental.
Hmm.
All right. So how my next question, we're gonna go into the context, the colonial Nigeria. Okay, first of all, one of the things that just dawned on me was the colonial, the colonists are the ones that brought the idea of having a house help. It just dawned on me because as they were describing things in the narrating things in the book, and she said something like someone who was rich as Baba Tokwe having a house help in the house is like, the colonists having a servant in the house. And I think that was still a relatively new idea in Yoruba culture anyway. And it got me thinking, it makes sense because typically what I what I would think would be more closer to our culture would be for people to have like family, distant relatives come stay with them, not a paid, house girl, house boy
Stranger.
calling.
Right. Who was not
I was
related. Right.
like, damn, that is a completely colonial, practice that
Hmm.
people have
Hmm.
continued on with.
Hmm.
Did you not get that from this?
No, because I didn't grow up in Nigeria. So that's part of it.
Okay.
So because my dad is of the era that these people are talking about a lot, I I drew some uh, similarities from some of the descriptions he gave me. So like when my dad actually ran away from home, um,
Really?
when he was because he's from a very rural part of Ogun State where Abeokuta was like the big city, and he had an uncle who lived in Lagos. So in the so after the war in the early 1950s, he was a teenager. So he by then had run off to Lagos. And so and how they had it was that they were some apprentices that lived with their whoever they were getting their training from, where it be a tailor, bricklayer, or whomever it was. You would just live there and do your training with that person. And so that's kind of how he got a place to stay. I saw the house help more in that vein than in anything else
Mm,
because I think they talked about Atinuke becoming like some sort of getting a skill
hmm.
or not necessarily going to get an education, but being useful in more than the way of just cleaning the house. So that's how I felt it. And I was like, I don't know. So, because I don't have any other comparisons other than what my father experienced when he was growing up and my very limited experience of going to Nigeria as an adult.
Yeah. Okay. So that was interesting for me to know. Okay.
Hmm.
So the question of against the backdrop of colonial Nigeria, how did the
Hmm.
World War II backdrop quietly shape the characters' options and decisions?
Hmm.
Definitely the fact that I'm sorry, America. The British were entering into the war and they needed money.
Yep.
So they was just basically siphoning money from their colonial, the countries that they
Like
ruled.
like an ATM. Yeah.
Exactly. It was like cha-ching. And then one of the things that the governor, oh my goodness, it's just even hard for me to like say like the governor of Lagos
Hmm.
um
Hmm.
said was, oh, well, women in the UK pay taxes, and so therefore you're gonna pay taxes too. And the thing is, but the it's not equal. They have more money than we do. That yeah, I don't know if you remember that discussion with
Yes, I remember.
it's just the idea that you can again you can go into some foreign land, turn it into
Mhm.
your own colonial state, and you own everything. in the
People's
description
kindness
of
was
this.
exploited for sure. People's
Say it again.
hospitality was exploited. People's kindness and hospitality, which is culturally very important, was completely exploited because
Yeah.
you couldn't have these visitors come into your home and be rude to them. Even when they were being unfair to you, you'd be like, we can't just, behave like hooligans. And so they took that and they were like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. And then people would just wring their hands like, well, how will we pay this tax? What do you mean? Why pay it at all? What are you going to do? So I kind of am with you when the people came around to enforce the tax. I think there was one woman whose husband was blinded in Burma and she had a baby. She was forced to either spend 1 month in jail or pay £5. And I was like, who is enforcing this foolishness?
He fought your war. Like, and you
Where
still.
is his where is his veteran stipend? Where is his wounded soldier stipend? Like take care of your people. And then along the lines of what you were saying is that how are these people enforcing these ridiculous rules? How are the blacks enforcing what the white people are telling them to do just because white people told them to do it?
Yeah, that
These
to
are
me.
your sisters, your brothers and sisters who are suffering.
But
So
you
that
know
was confusing to me.
what did warm my heart though is at least when they stormed the governor's mansion in, is it
Hmm.
Ikoyi? At least the black was it the black gateman or whatever or butler was
Yes,
respectful to
yes, we
Mama.
did. Yeah.
That really, because if he was
Mhm.
not, I would have been cussing at him. But
But that was like a deeply ingrained cultural sense
yeah,
of this is how we have to handle ourselves with. And I feel like the
exactly.
other gatekeepers, maybe they grew up as orphans, or maybe they grew up kind of a little bit more isolated, or had less of a sense of cultural obligation that guy did not have. But
Mm.
I thought that was interesting too.
Yeah, no, I do. I deeply appreciated that. Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Okay. Next question. In what ways did colonial structures mirror or reinforce domestic patriarchy in the novel? Completely.
So
Completely.
yeah, we talked about the layers of control. And
Yeah.
so the domestic control mirrored the colonial control, which is like, you do what we tell you to do because these are the orders that came from the king. Duh. And so
Yeah.
in the house, it was like, well, you do what I tell you to do because I'm your husband. Duh. That's just how, there was no
And
explanation, no.
the parent-child
And
relationship too.
correct. And it was the finality of it and the unquestioning kind of basis of it that this is just how it is. We're not asking questions about it because that's just how it is.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what makes people like Mama Titi so dangerous because they're willing to question
Hmm.
it. And
Yes, ma'am.
because even Baba Tapa was like, why are you talking, you're basically, why are you hanging with women like that? Because those are women that he
Mhm.
would not be able to handle in his home, in his household. And
Yes, so they're
that just,
dangerous.
that's mind-boggling for people like that who are there to preserve the patriarchy. And we have that
Hmm.
today too. We have people like
Hmm.
that. Okay.
For sure.
Um, so I'm gonna skip this and let me see the next question. We're gonna jump into womanhood, survival, and choice. So, do you believe the
I'm
protagonist had real choices? Why or why not? I think
gonna
she,
let you answer that first.
I think she
Because you
had
were
choices.
judging them.
Had
Okay.
choices. Like I said, the one of the first choices. Granted, she may have not been granted a divorce, like a legal divorce, because I think at that point it's just not. It's unheard of. Um, but I think she could have cut the cord much earlier in her marriage. She got comfortable, in my opinion. She got comfortable with just having this affair, and the boyfriend, Emeka, right?
Yes.
Kind of just played along as well. So yeah, I told you I'm judging her. I'm sorry.
I see, but you're picking up the judgment kind of after the affair began. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm going to look at this in the frame of but my dad's people, because my father's father, um, so my father's grandfather had a bunch of wives too. That's just how they kind of did back in those days.
Hmm.
But what was interesting is that I asked my dad if he knew his grandmother on his father's side because he knew his grandmother and his great grandmother on his mother's side. So I was like, oh, this is so much history. This is some good stuff. Let's get in there. So then he said he didn't know his father's mother because she went to Lagos and had kids with some other guy. I said, I'm sorry, who? Keep in mind now, my father was born in 1936. So excuse me? So that means that his father was born in, 1910, 1915, so on and so forth. So this is a woman you're telling me who in that era pre-World War One, had children for. She said it was my father. So my grandfather and his brother were in Abeokuta with their father, but their mother went on to Lagos, where she was a trader. She went back and forth to do like some sort of trading route, and then she stayed in Lagos and allowed her two sons. I mean, they had to stay with their father to be raised by their father while she continued on her life with some other man. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting. There are women like that, and maybe that's why I'm
so,
judging
so I was
Kettle.
like, this would have been 20 or 30 years prior to the time setting of this book. So I
Mhm.
felt like she had choices because I know that to be true in my own family. So I'm like, whatever happened with my great grandmother, clearly this woman could have also done.
I think I would, yeah, because I was like, you just had to
I was
make
so
it to the end
interested. I was like,
today.
excuse me, what's the tea on this? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. I feel like she could have made some choices and
So
just,
basically, to me, her first choice was what Taiwo endorsed, which is do not get married to this man to begin with.
yeah.
You were not your mother. Your mother is a grown woman. She can make her own choices. She has her husband's family, who, even though she's a widow now, she's still part of that family who can potentially take care of her. Taiwo was right. And that was her first choice that I feel like was a very real choice that
Mm.
she failed to make.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with that. Oh my goodness, yeah. Whew, okay, so next, what is the difference between survival and agency in this novel? Survival and agency.
That's a
Um,
good question.
I feel like most of the, especially women, they were basically surviving. They had very little agency. The one woman that I would say had agency is Mama Titi, where she was still able to lead the women for on the cause. Um, Even the men, I feel like at some point they were defaulting to just having to survive the system. Survive the system. They now no man well they mentioned Azikwe, but no real character here was portrayed as someone who was trying to go against the a colonial rule and had their own idea. Like we didn't get in deep into that. Well, America also
Mhm.
had leanings towards like, we want to be rule our own selves kind of thing. But I felt like most of them were defaulting to survival rather than having any sort of real agency to control their lives.
I think that's an interesting observation. I didn't feel like Mama Titi had much agency at all. I think she was trying to survive the system. And so, had she had any real agency, they wouldn't be trying to fight this tax. They'd be trying to get rid of the British. They weren't trying to get rid of the British.
I
They were
see.
trying to get rid of the tax. And
I see.
so, they were completely fine. They were going along, get along until they had came up with that tax. They were
Okay.
going along to get along until the bodies started showing up in Burma.
Like, I feel like she was on the trajectory of, getting that agency because that's the first step. It would not be, perhaps it was for me, it looked like agency based on her situation. I mean, what else could she have done? She didn't have an army to go fight anybody. You know what I'm saying? I felt like maybe that was the beginning, what the agency would look like in the beginning phases before they get to the point where, okay, you know what, we don't even want these people to rule us anymore. Maybe
This
that's
is the beginning, is what you're saying. To me, I felt like, well, where were her complaints before this tax happened? She seemed to be quite all
but
right.
they were doing things. I mean, they had a whole that's I feel like someone like her is the reason why the British left them alone to you know deal with their own affairs.
So the LMWA, they talked about having those hygienic people and the people who were the LMWA to me was a product of the thuggish buffoonery of the colonials who were coming to enforce all these ridiculous rules. And to me, that signaled more survival than it signaled agency, because agency to me is proactive, not reactive, and survival is reactive. And everything in this book was reactive.
Okay, I see that. I see that. I can appreciate that. No, I
Mhm.
agree. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. What does this was the first time I really heard the title Parlour Wife, and it
Your
makes sense.
parla.
When I once I got, I was like, oh, Okay. So what does the title Parlor Wife suggest about visibility, legitimacy, and belonging? Listen, you're invisible. Your place is in the parlor, and all you got to do is just serve the man that is over you. That's it.
What
Um,
was the second part of that question? You said, what does it say about visibility, something else, and then belonging?
okay, visibility, legitimacy, and
Legitimacy.
and being a wife is what makes you legitimate in
Right.
this culture. That's like the end all be all for women, unfortunately, at that
Mhm.
time. That was it. You just gotta get married, have your children, now you're a woman. Um, but yeah, that term, ew.
Well, I feel like I think this is a very interestingly framed question when we talk about Parlour Wife as far as visibility, legitimacy, and belonging. Well, the legitimacy is, like you said, in just being the wife at all. But then being in the parlor speaks to the visibility and belonging. Like the visibility is where you belong, right? Like you belong as something for us to look at as like an object, literal objectification. Like here you are in the parlor, like a nightstand or a floral arrangement. You just sit over here and look cute. Okay.
Do you remember that scene where Baba Takwa's friends and they were around and they said, kiss me?
Yeah.
I thought that was
Yeah.
so, it was just,
Yeah. That was, oh, it was hard.
that
Yeah.
that was
And
the
she did
great.
it like a puppet. And I was like, you can say no, right?
I don't know. See, just this woman, there's a 20-year gap. Well, maybe with more than 20, at least 20-year gap between them. That's
So here's where I must clearly be this my great grandmother's child because I've been like that my whole life. My nickname growing up was Margaret Thatcher. They were just like, we don't know, we're gonna do this one. Mm-mm.
they
So
called me Margaret Thatcher to growing up.
they said, Lady Thatcher. Lady, that was what they called me growing up. So I
Me
just
too.
don't. I can't understand any other way of being. I'm like, why would you say
No,
yes?
no, no. I'm not saying this right. I'm just saying, like, I am still the one to
No,
question these things, like, why?
yeah, it's
Why?
just hard for
Like,
me
because.
to just be like, she had no choice. I can see that you can feel like you have no choice, but I cannot agree that you have. Now, maybe I watched too much of Roots and Kunta Kinte. Like you can choose to have your arm amputated, or you can choose to go along with these slaves. Some people will be like, "Look, cut my arm." So I feel like even if the choice is bad, that
Yeah,
doesn't mean that there isn't a choice. It just means that you don't want to make that
a difficult choice.
choice.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, it tugged at my heart. I hated that term. I think that I may have heard it before, but it
Mhm.
really, when I heard it, it grinds me. It's like,
Can I
ugh.
ask you a question then? How
Mhm.
would you kind of reframe that phrase for with a kind of a modern lens? How would that be used like contemporarily?
So in today's world,
Hmm.
especially in the Muslim context, I would see it as a woman who could have grown up having potential, but once they get married, get married to a man that says, no, your job is to stay home, get pregnant, have kids, and stay, you know, making sure that the house is ready, my food is ready on the table when I come home. That's
Hmm.
what I would see that as in today's world.
Would you think an analogous term would be something like trophy wife?
No, no,
Because
because trophy wife, at least, hmm, I
you
would.
put it on the mantle and you just say, everybody come and look, come look, come look.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Trophy
Mhm.
wife is more for me to look at and show you off, but not necessarily to control you as such. I don't know why I'm
I
saying that.
see.
I feel like trophy wife still has a level of power. Because
Mhm.
the man would want to keep this trophy wife, right, at all costs. So she has a certain level of power, as opposed to a parlor wife. This is interesting. We should write the whole thing about trophy wife versus
So,
parlor wife. As
right.
opposed to a parlor wife, I don't think a parlor wife has options or has any kind of a leverage per se.
Neither does a trophy wife because age comes in and then he trades you in for a new one. So to me, like to be paraded
But
around on
but
somebody's
but at
arm
the
and
time, that the
mhm,
man has that trophy wife, she's still, he wants to please her to keep her, right? That's how I see it. She still has, however transient, she still have a level of power, not power, a
I would
level
disagree
of
because if he was able to get that one, he can get another one, and that's probably a motivation for him because people like to have trophies and they like to collect them. But no, I felt there's a lot of similarities between that term parlor wife and trophy wife because she said, "Yeah, well, parlor, this is what you're here for, just to sit here like a trophy." So that's kind of where I got that. I just was wondering what your thoughts were on that. So that's interesting that she has some power with being a trophy, but not being
a
an
power.
object in the parlor.
Or not even, and it's like you said, it's not true power necessarily, but it's a
Yeah,
certain level of power because the man
leverage.
would have had to chase after the trophy wife, I feel. The Parlour Wife, they may not have to necessarily do a lot of the hunting, chasing
Mhm.
after her to get her. But once you have her, it's like these are the rules. You just this is the what I expect of you. But the trophy wife, there's
I
a
think that's
certain
mixing a
level of
couple of things because what she said was, "Yeah, well, parlor, this is what you're here for."
yeah.
That was the full context of it. And so I think how he got the parlor wife is not as important as what she is there for to do.
Mm,
And with the trophy wife having some leverage, maybe the parlor wife would have some leverage too because she would have been able to say no. Like if it was Io in that situation, and she may have brushed his hand aside, or maybe just kind of pulled away a little bit. Nothing obvious, but something subtle. That still would have been her choice to make.
mm. It's interesting. I would
We'll
actually
have to read a
like
feminist book next.
you're right. It would
Hmm.
be a huge, a worthy discussion, the parlor wife versus trophy wife. Interesting. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. So let me see. Okay. Interior life and emotional cost. What is the emotional cost of secrecy in the novel? The emotional cost. Happiness, joy, you're stripped of everything. Um, there's emotional cost, and I also think at the very end there was an emotional benefit.
I was going to say I didn't see a
Maybe
cost.
it was a benefit at the end.
Secrecy only helped her gain her independence and power.
Yeah.
It didn't
But
cost her anything to have secrets.
but the secrecy, I think, must have been eaten up, eating her up on the inside. Like, I don't think she necessarily wanted to live this double life. So I can't imagine, she was clearly unhappy going home to Baba Tokwe's house every day. You know what I'm saying? But
What about the LMWA? There was a lot of, I mean, that was the only thing she actually got punished for. But it
yeah,
gave her such a sense of freedom that even if after he beat her, she still did it because
yeah.
it was so gratifying to have a purpose.
So that was the
So I
emotion.
feel like there wasn't really
You're right.
any,
That was an emotional benefit for her.
yeah. Yeah, so I didn't see any
I
costs
have to say,
from
like,
my
I was
reading.
so proud of her when she went to Mama Titi and Mama Titi thought she was quitting. She's like, no, 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 I'm still going to do this. I was like,
But here's how we're going to do it. You're going to have to come to my office. We'll use the courier. It made
I
her more,
love it.
it made her innovate. It made her create, it made her more creative to come up with something, come up with a solution. And necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Because she needed this to feel purpose. Otherwise, she would have just gone into a depression and tried to kill herself. What reason did she have to live in Baba Tokwe's house?
No
She
child,
didn't.
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, this was interesting. I when this question came up, how does comfort, meaning financial securities, social protection, how does it complicate the idea of freedom? I
Mm.
think beyond that, I would say for her, it was the social expectation complicated her life. She wanted to be that good daughter. She wanted to be that, well, what appeared to be a good wife, but more the good daughter is
Mhm.
what complicated her life. Because I think,
Baba Tokwe taking care of her mom was what
yeah,
really kept her there.
I
Hmm.
was also, I feel like had her mom also passed away or something, not that I'm praying for such a thing, I feel like she would have left. She would not have gone to Baba Tokwe.
I agree. I agree.
So
It
it
was
was
that
more
filial
of
tie that kept her there. So that's not as much comfort as it is that she felt guilt if she didn't do what her parents told her to do. I think in one of the passages she said she wished she could feel comfortable define people like Taiwo did. She was like, but I can't. She's like, I can't do it. I can't.
Yeah. I feel like I went through a phase of I wanted to please my parents and I just wanted to be the good daughter. Um,
Hmm.
but as I grew older and realizing like, but I got to take care of me, things started to
Hmm.
shift. And that's a shift that
Hmm.
not every woman goes through fast enough, um,
Hmm.
quick enough. And when you're stuck in that pleasing mode, you're
Oh,
hurting.
for sure. Oh, for sure, for sure. So, I kind of see like comfort complicates freedom. I
Mm.
don't think for her, physical comfort complicated her freedom, but like emotional comfort, like being happy that she was the dutiful daughter, it made her feel. So I'm trying to like get ready to go pick up Sufyan, but like I'm with you.
Say that again?
I'm just kind of shuffling to get to the car because I'm going to drive
Oh,
over very
okay.
soon. But I'm still with you.
Let's
I
wrap
can
it
just.
up then. Um, I was gonna ask this, but we already kind of talked about it. How do we see echoes of Parlour Wife dynamics, literal or symbolic, in modern relationships? And I think that would be the
Uh,
trophy wife comparison. But let me close this really quickly. So, what did this
sure.
book reveal about the quiet compromise women make and what they carry?
The quiet compromise that women make.
Yes, and what they carry. I'm seeing that as emotional baggage that we carry.
So I did not see it as a female compromise. Again, this is because of Mama Titi. This is because of Auntie Bingbe. Like these were all examples of women who were in those times and who did what they wanted and who did what they wanted unapologetically. And then I gave you my example of my great grandmother. So like, I didn't see it as like a female thing. I saw it as a K&A thing. I know this is a K&A situation.
Well, I see it as a can. I see why you would say as a candy thing, but I feel like it's also widespread though. There have to be many more candies for the country to be able to operate that way and stay that way for a long time. People like
Okay, that's yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
people like Mama being paid, sorry, Auntie being paid were the few and far between. If not, then the country would not, colonial rule would not have stayed. All this patriarchy would have changed along. You know what I'm saying? Like there have to be way
Hmm.
more of those types of women for things to really change.
Hmm.
And
Uh,
go ahead.
I think just because of my great grandmother being like the bad mama jamma that she was, I'm kind of like, oh no.
So
I
I
think
feel
like
you're
there was,
right. There were quite a few of women like that. I feel like there were quite a few women who
and
exist.
then Fela's mom, right? Uh, and the army. She had an army behind her. It wasn't just her. So how could all these women, if it was truly so, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Culturally bad for them to, not toe the line. Why would they have done it? Why risk it? It's too dangerous for them, um, culturally.
But yeah, some women. But also remember, Fumi Kuti was rich. She was not from a.
So I was because didn't
She,
Fela go to like England or something for school?
and I don't know that, but they were not poor, and they were
Okay.
well connected. So that's another thing to really keep in mind.
Okay.
You have what they would term a roguish woman who has connection and money. They can get a whole lot more done than one that's coming from a poor background because that woman is probably already operating from a survival standpoint where I just want to get my next meal.
Yep.
I'm not going to rock the boat. As opposed to someone, yeah, I have all this.
Yes.
I just need to question all this that's going on. So I feel like that's a huge difference. That's
Right.
probably some things that really helped make her movement successful, mashallah. The fact that she's all
Money. That's the one thing that I didn't even think about. Money. And that was central to the theme of this book.
yeah. And
Money.
even in the story you're sharing, and women who are able to leave up and leave their husbands, if they're able to make a living for themselves, what's the need for to stay in a marriage that's costing you peace of mind? That's
Girl,
the biggest
yes.
part.
There
A
you
lot
said
of
it.
us stay just for the comfort of it, or what am I gonna do with my life? I ain't got no work, no
Yep.
job, no money, so they stay. I feel like that's a
Yes.
huge part. All right, that's all I got. Any other closing thoughts? Of course, for me, I felt like the book, how dare you end it like this? You better have a part two coming. How dare you? And I
Yeah,
almost
I wasn't happy with the ending either.
I
Yeah.
have a feeling that Taiwo is still alive. I have a feeling Keke is going to find her twin brother.
I agree. I agree. I liked how they ended the book with with a letter to him.
Yeah.
But so I will just ask you, do you have any thoughts for like the next book
I
or
do. I was
how
looking
did you
I
how'd you
was
pick this one?
okay, so when after reading the previous one, Night Bloom,
Mhm.
there were, I always
Yeah.
get recommendations. And I started looking into it. And actually, I think I had come across Parlour Wife for a bit before, a little while ago. It popped up and I was like,
Okay.
that seems interesting. And I
So
just
it was in your recommendations.
so it's based on recommendation. And then I mentioned this Parlour Wife to Amira, and she was like, yes, I thought about that too. I was like, oh, okay, maybe that'll be the next one. The next
Okay.
one,
Okay.
hang on, there were two that I had in mind. One that's an African American
Okay.
based story. Oh my gosh, I didn't save it. I wonder if I took a screenshot. I'll share it. The one that's based, I think this is a new one that was just released. Something about it's supposed to tell the story of enslaved people that fought back. Because the
Oh,
narrative is always about like, oh yeah, black people let slavery happen to them kind of thing. Um,
yes. True.
but this is more about those who fought back. Well, how did I not save it? I have to look through my pictures. I'm I typically like take screenshots of them and go back to them.
Okay.
So that's what I was gonna
Okay.
do. But if you have a recommendation, please. I don't want to necessarily be the only one recommending stuff. Do you
Well,
have
I
any?
recommended Baba Seki's Wives because you had already read it. So
Okay,
I
yeah, there
really
you
that
go.
was my contribution.
Yeah. So yeah,
But
anytime.
I'll look at them because I really like highlighting our voices, our women's voices, and our cultural voices. I feel
Yeah,
like
and
it's.
that
I
that
don't think I would have read this many books by Nigerian or by Black women authors if not for these meetings. So I really
oh,
appreciate you putting it all together, even though it's just the two of us today. Or like last time, I wasn't able to make it.
no, it's okay, it's
But no,
okay.
it's important.
So this is my thing, my affinity for audiobooks. I love Black stories. I love to focus on Black
Hmm.
stories. I love Black stories where Black people are thriving.
Hmm.
Um, I don't, like I just Black joy, put it that way, Black family.
Yes,
That's my thing. Of course, we'll
I
have some,
agree.
some stories of things happening and stuff. But I'm not, I love to fill my heart and my mind and my soul with stories of Black people who are doing well. Like I always get into antebellum stories of antebellum South, and I love reading about the Black families who escaped slavery, for example, who or
Yeah.
were free people and were thriving. Like those are the types of things that draws me. It's like, oh, I want to read about this. Just change
Yes.
the narrative from the foolishness we hear. I'm gonna look more into it and see where I saved it, and
Okay.
then that'll be the next book. So for March, and I know much of March is going to be Ramadan. We'll
Ramadan,
the
yeah.
very, very last weekend of March, inshallah, to do this. I don't yeah, it's gonna be another fast read. It's gonna be another fast read, but let me look at the dates though. Let me see.
Okay.
So
Or
you,
maybe we can just skip March and then pick up in April. I mean, that's
yeah, I'm
an
scared of
option too.
it. Well, I mean, Eid is
Because then it
20.
becomes a bigger gap. I know what you
It
mean.
is around the 20th or 21st. I think we can still spend a whole week to read and can meet
Okay.
March 29th, Sunday the 29th, inshallah. Yeah, we can do the 29th as a meeting. So yeah, let me send
Okay.
that out. Inshallah. I'll send out the new book and
Okay.
the meeting time, and we'll go from there. Thanks for joining. This was
Thank
cool.
you. You had such insightful questions. It really made me think. So I
I
appreciate the
mean,
gathering.
help. I have ideas of what I want to talk about, but I also, put into search Google search and stuff and see what
Okay.
what might be relevant to the book, and that helps me kind of
Sure.
direct it. Thanks.
Okay.
All right,
Well, you
ladies,
have a lovely afternoon, madam.
do
Keep
the
that glow
same.
up. Okay.
And hugs and kisses to Sufyan.
Okay. I will do. Take care. Bye bye.
Alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.